Hi everybody, Kirsty, Goddess of Neptune here. I hope you're doing really well wherever you are in the world. This is your astrology overview for a couple of big events we've got going on this week in astrological terms. We have, of course, the full moon in Virgo happening on Tuesday, 7th of March. And we also have Saturn entering Pisces on the same day of 7th of March. So one could be feeling some intense energy around that. And certainly when we think of the full moon in terms of emotions with the moon, but also illumination with it being the full moon, bringing up to the surface that which may have been hidden, and Saturn almost coming in and bringing a bit of a reality check for us. So I'm going to pull up the charts. I've got quite a lot to cover, so bear with me whilst I just bring this up onto the screen. So what we have here is we have Saturn entering Pisces. Now this relates to the time zone of GMT. So where I am in the UK, GMT or British Standard Time, apply it to your own time zones as appropriate. But for us in the UK and those on GMT, it's happening at 13:35 on Tuesday, the 7th of March, which is just less than an hour after the full moon in Virgo. And I'll come on to that in a bit. But basically looking at the chart here, and you can see with the yellow line just there, top right hand side, we've got Saturn at 0 degrees of Pisces, having transited through from Aquarius, where he spent a few years. And I looked back and I believe it was the 22nd of March 2020 when Saturn entered Aquarius. Now we know 2020 was a pretty big year for a number of reasons, one big reason in particular. So during that time, from when Saturn entered Aquarius, we've had a few years where a lot has been going on and transformation has been heavy in our own personal lives. We've had to really discern a lot of things during this period. And we've also had to take stock, I suppose, of connections. So you think of Aquarius, Saturn being in Aquarius, it kind of brings that intense energy into Aquarius, the realm of connections and social aspects. There's also that element of freedom as well. And of course, for the last 3 years, that has been called into question also, which I'm sure you can resonate with. But essentially, when it comes to our connections with others, not only with others, but places and things as well, but using the Aquarian logic of connections, our connections with others during that time, what have we learned during that time? Have we learned the lessons of those connections during that period? And it could even be a connection that was existing before that period, but there may have been certain lessons during that period that we've had to learn. Have we truly learned that? Have we gained the wisdom from that in order to apply it to our own healing journey, our own evolution, our own development? How does it apply for you, if it applies at all? Because of course, take it if it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. This is my interpretation of the transits and the astrology here. Saturn will be coming, out of Aquarius into Pisces, and that is fixed energy, moving into mutable energy. So that automatically brings with it a bit of harshness, but it can also work for us because it can enable us to get things done. Because of course, Saturn rules Capricorn, and that's very much about being focused and driven, getting things done, getting tasks completed, quite regimented. So of course, with everything, there's a shadow and a light side, so it can feel restrictive as well. And it's coming into Pisces, which is all about going with the flow, mutable energy. And Saturn's going to be like, hiya, I'm here. So it can feel restrictive for us in Pisces season because we're wanting to go with the flow. We're trying to adapt and get in touch more with our intuition, potentially, especially because Mercury being there as well, as covered in my previous astrology report. But Saturn's kind of going, hiya, I'm here, I'm now in your realm. What are we going to get done? Have you learned everything from the time I was in Aquarius? Or do we need to be serving up a bit of karma here? What's going on? So it can kind of, it's almost like that regimented, sticking to the rules in a sense, having that element of control in that way, but having that element of control into a flowy sign of Pisces. Now, don't get me wrong, and I'm a Pisces myself, I can relate to this. Sometimes we need a reality check. Sometimes we need to be grounded. But this energy coming in, you know, as certainly Saturn is entering Pisces, could feel, especially with the full moon going on as well, quite intense in terms of emotions, because it is that reality check that we need for our highest good, but maybe we don't want to experience. And when you consider the lessons that we've had to go through during the past few years, you know, this is now almost I say a fresh slate, but what I mean by that is, you know, he's in a new sign now. So it's almost starting it off in this new sign for another few years. But it's a fresh slate in that respect. However, we got a clean house here. We got a clean house and, you know, clean up, basically. Anything that we've learned from the past that has not been fully accepted or released or transmuted, processed, this is where the karma comes into it. And again, relating to connections, because of being in Aquarius, were any choices made in relation to connections that perhaps weren't the right choice at the time, but they felt the right choice at the time. So a bit of a misjudgment because of the energy that's been going on. And obviously just take that if it applies to you, but our connections with others, truly using that discernment to understand, is this the right decision for me in this connection? It could be generating more karma if it was actually a misjudged choice. And that's not to put fear in anybody. That's just to say that if these feelings are now going to be coming up for you because the full moon is going to be illuminating it, it's almost saying, don't be shocked or surprised by it. It's almost a case of going with the energy. And it's like, okay, that's been illuminated to me. I may have misjudged that situation. Thanks, Saturn. Thank you, full moon, for bringing this to my attention. I recognize where I might have been wrong or where I might have been misjudged in that choice. And now I know how I can rectify that, or what measures I can put in place to, you know, rectify the situation or transmute the pain that I've still been experiencing because I really should have closed out that situation. However it applies, you know, is taking the wisdom from the lessons, because Saturn's asking, have you really learned the lesson? Or are you still on the same cycle, or have you repeated the cycle? Because that's what we're going to experience, you know, that energy of Saturn coming in and questioning us almost, and the full moon being there by Saturn's side, turning the spotlight on. So you imagine being in one of these interview rooms and you've got Saturn sitting opposite you, asking you, what have you learnt in this period when I was in Aquarius? I'm now in Pisces. So, you know, this is the house of the divine. This is the spiritual realm. And have you really been acting with that integrity of your true soul essence? Have you learnt those lessons? Have you gained the wisdom from those lessons? Or are you just going to repeat the same thing again? Because I want to know, because I'm Saturn and I'm sitting here and we need to sort this out. And the full moon's just there shining that light while Saturn is asking you those questions. And as I said, it can help us. This energy can help us because it is that reality check that we need. We need to be grounded. Personally, for me, you know, I'm a Piscean. I do have that sort of dreamy, floaty energy. And that can lead to procrastination. And I will hold my hands up to that. I've also got a lot of Virgo in my chart. So I do have that Pisces and Virgo balance in my chart, but also the opposition there, because of course they're opposite signs. And the full moon is happening in Virgo, the opposite sign to Pisces, where the sun is. So there is almost like that kind of butting heads, push-pull, however it might feel, indecisiveness. But when you use the energy for the positive, it can balance and merge together, because the grounding is needed for that reality check, but the connection to the divine is needed through our intuition, through our soul's essence, because then we're coming from a place of divine truth and alignment with our divine truth. So I hope that makes sense how I've explained it there. And of course, we've got Mercury in Pisces because that's recently transited into Pisces. And I mentioned in a previous astrology overview that that is truly, in my view, enhancing our connection to source energy through our intuition, because that is our connection to source. We are source energy. And it's having the faith and the courage to truly trust in our intuition and what our intuition is telling us, has been telling us, it's acceptance of that, but also receiving the information, being open to receive that information from the divine and trusting it. And that's been hard with a lot of the deceptive energy that's been around. And certainly Neptune has played a part in that. So that deception and illusion is, of course, the shadow side of Pisces, but we want to focus on the mystical, magical, ethereal realm of Pisces, because that is our connection to the divine. That is the spiritual realm. And that is truly our embodiment of source energy. So getting comfortable with knowing that we're worthy of connecting to our intuition, because that's our compass within, and really embracing that, but needing a bit of a reality check to understand that. Because otherwise, how do we learn those lessons from Saturn? So it's all about kind of using the energy to work with us and for us, not against us, not seeing everything as a barrier. If it's a challenge, it's clearly there as a lesson to be worked through, and it's part of our healing journey. So it's all positive in the end. It's all contributing to this beautiful transformation that we're going through. That has been intense, not going to lie, it has been intense, but it's all for our highest good. And now we've got Saturn, this malefic energy, going into Pisces. And as I've said, sitting across from you at the table, asking you, have you learnt your lessons from the past few years? What do we still need to address? Because we're in the house of the divine now, and we need to have that integrity with our soul in order to truly gain that wisdom. And that's what tops up our wisdom bank within our soul. We've learned a lot from this lifetime and past lifetimes. It's inherently within us. It's being able to access it through our communication with our intuition, our communication with the divine, Mercury in Pisces. So it's getting deeper connected to ourselves in that way through source energy, of which we embody. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to pull up the chart for the UK just to give you an example. So just going to stop sharing that one. And whilst I find the other image on here. So, of course, you will have seen in previous astrology overviews that I've done, I pull up the UK chart just to give a bit of an example of how it could be impacting on the UK, certainly in terms of the nation or as the collective of the UK, but not just exclusive to that. If you're watching this and it resonates for you, it resonates for you. It's however it applies to your journey. And we see here the inner circle, the inner wheel is the UK's natal chart, and the outer wheel is Saturn entering Pisces at 13:35 GMT, British Standard Time. And the yellow lines indicate where we have Saturn. So you'll see top right there, Saturn entering Pisces, 0 degrees, and it's in the 8th house for the UK. So again, and I know I said it before, this will apply differently and uniquely to your own natal chart. This is based on the UK's natal chart. So Saturn is transiting into Pisces at the tail end of the 8th house, which is power. So think of it as a nation, you know, that kind of business focused energy and rule master, taskmaster, regimented energy in the house of power, but in that ethereal realm of the divine. So there could be a lot to be said for the collective in the UK, potentially more people awakening spiritually because of the Piscean energy, and that bringing power to the nation because we are connecting deeper with source. Now you'll notice on the opposite side, so bottom left-hand side, the other yellow line there is the moon, but it's the moon in the natal chart. It's not the moon transiting, this is the UK's moon. So that is the direct opposition, because we've got Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces, and we've got the UK's natal chart moon at 0 degrees Virgo in the second house of values and worth. So do we really feel worthy of owning that power within, to trust this Saturnian energy that's going to help drive us forward, to truly embody those lessons that we've learned from the previous period, but to connect more to our intuition and follow through in that respect? There could be a question about worth and value because of the UK's natal chart being second house moon on that one. Emotions, you know, and we've of course got the moon transiting through Virgo, because the full moon is happening in Virgo, and as I've said, it's happening just less than an hour before the Saturn transit. So on the chart that you're seeing there, it's moved a little bit, because obviously it's not at the 16 degrees anymore, but it's still in the 3rd house as it's transiting through. So that's communication. So, you know, do we feel comfortable? Do we feel worthy and have values in terms of communicating when this reality check comes to light, when it's illuminated to us as a collective in the UK? Is that comfortable for us? Do we want to communicate that? And bearing in mind the opposite house to the 3rd is the 9th. And that's where not only the UK's natal Mercury is, which is communication, but also Mercury himself is transiting through, still in Pisces, but in the 9th house for the UK. So there is, again, that sort of push-pull energy there of testing the communication aspects, how we communicate with others, how we communicate to ourselves when it comes to that reality and the divine realms, applying it, you know, to our reality from those deeper connections with our intuition. So that's just how that's playing out, really, in relation to the UK. And I was drawn to just look at Lilith also. Lilith is still in Leo, and that's in the 1st house, transiting through the 1st house of the UK. So again, you know, potential self-esteem wounds about embodying the true self, and with it being Leo energy, almost that full expression of self from the soul, because, you know, Leo represents the sun energy, and that is very much about shining bright no matter what's going on, but truly that expansive expression of self from the soul, because, you know, our sun sign is our soul. So I know I'm crossing over into a bit of tarot when I say that, because I'm thinking of the sun card when it comes to Leo energy, but it's certainly about that full expression of self. And Lilith could be just highlighting some self-esteem wounds, some concerns about, you know, am I fully confident to embody my true expression of self? That ties in, of course, with that divine realm of Pisces and everything that's going on there, as well as the Aries energy, because we've got, you know, Aries, which is the house of the self, and we've got a lot of energy packed into Aries because we've got the healing essence going on with Chiron, Jupiter, and of course Venus. Now on the 12th, which is next Sunday, 12th of March, we will have the exact conjunction of Chiron and Jupiter at 14 degrees, expanding those healing elements, expanding that essence with Venus there supporting, you know, the nurturing of our healing journey. That metaphorical hug that I mentioned in the previous astrology overview, because of what we've gone through and the wounds that we have had to process and deal with. And there is that illumination of that again with the full moon, because we've still got that energy in Aries. So it's truly shining the light on us as a sovereign soul. And one of the other things that came to my mind, so before I forget, when it comes to the Saturn transit into Pisces and the lessons, you know, the interrogation almost of have we learned those lessons? There is that feeling of integrity, because integrity is very much us acting in accordance with our soul's truth, no matter what people think, because it's all about our journey. So it's acting from our truth, not sugarcoating it ourselves by our own ego or by our own fears, but operating from that place of integrity. So we know who we are on a soul level. We embody our soul's truth as a sovereign being, and we express that to whoever and whenever, because that is the embodiment of our soul's truth. So integrity is a key word, because over the past few years, while Saturn was in Aquarius, and you've got all that energy going on of, you know, freedom, feeling restricted against freedom, which is certainly what was going on the past few years. But within our connections, you know, what have we learned? Have we upheld our integrity within our soul when it comes to connections with others? Because what we've truly believed may not have been the same as what other people have believed. And that's fine, we can coexist in that way. But when it comes to needing to close out cycles in connections, because they're no longer in alignment, they're no longer serving us, they're no longer for our highest good, have we been doing that? Have we been closing them out? Because our integrity is paramount. So if a connection hasn't matched what we're feeling inside from that soul truth, have we done anything about it? Again, Saturn's going to be asking us this. So, you know, and this is where the misjudgment could have come in, because perhaps decisions have been made or choices have been made in connections, with connections, and they may have felt completely in alignment at the time. But on reflection, as Saturn's now entering the house of the divine, you know, the divine spiritual realm, is that connection truly in accordance with your soul's truth, your soul's essence, your integrity as a divine being? Does it match on that front? And those might be difficult questions to ask ourselves. So it's whether we're going to repeat the cycle because we haven't maybe learned that that wasn't right for us, and we need to go through whatever we need to go through. Again, it's all part of soul's growth. So, you know, it's never the wrong thing in that sense, because it's all for soul's growth. But this is where, again, that word of karma comes up, because Saturn rules karma. So this period of Saturn moving into Pisces, I'll just take the chart off for a second. This period of Saturn moving into Pisces is, again, that reality check, but it's also going to enable us to get things done, you know, when we need to get done. If we use the energy positively and we have that positive perspective on things, because that will show that we have learned the lessons and we know what we need to do to move forward. But from the karmic point of view, this is where karmic returns are going to happen, because Saturn is in the house of the divine, the spiritual realm, the ethereal realm of Pisces. So karmic returns can, of course, be those karmic rewards for a lot of hard work that's been applied on your own journey, and you're going to get karmically rewarded for that, because Saturn has seen what you've done, what you've had to go through, what you've navigated, the lessons you've learned, and so on, acting from a place of integrity. But on the flip side, this is where it is a wake-up call for some people. So it could be that you get the karmic rewards, or it could be that you get this big wake-up call from Saturn in terms of karma. And karma needs to be processed, but of course it needs to be accepted, acknowledged, and all of that first, in order to then cleanse it, to then move forward. And if it involves other people, this is often where conversations need to happen. And with that Mercury energy being in Pisces, I feel that's going to support those conversations, because Mercury is in the same realm as Saturn, and it's facilitating and enhancing the deeper connections with source energy. So if there are any elements where it's a wake-up call and it's like, oh, okay, I've realized that, thanks Saturn, thank you full moon for highlighting all of that, I now need to have a conversation with this person, because okay, I can see there's been a bit of karma built up now because of choices that's been made, or however it applies. And this Mercury energy, I'm going to utilize the Mercury energy in Pisces to truly have that conversation, which comes from a place of divine truth and integrity, in order to try and resolve this, or work towards it. And then you're truly then working with the energy of Saturn, because you've acknowledged what the lesson has been and you are putting the work and effort in, again, Saturnian energy, putting that work and effort in to rectify situations. So that's just how it feels to me. And it's all about balancing out the scales. So although it's not Libra energy, because we think of Libra when we think of justice, etc., but this is about divine justice. Certainly when it comes to karmic rewards, it is about divine justice. And Saturn's going to deliver that for some people in the collective. For others, it is going to be that reality check. But again, the energy is there to support us in moving forward, to really, truly connect with our soul's integrity and have the necessary conversations if required, even if it's just a conversation with ourselves, to truly understand and to work that through. With everything going on with Chiron and Jupiter and Venus that I've mentioned, you know, it's all part of this healing journey. Wounds have been coming up, and this is where wake-up calls might have been happening, because these wounds are surfacing, and it's that recognition of, maybe I did make that choice because I was still wounded from the past. Maybe I made that choice because I haven't felt worthy of myself. And it's that communication with ourselves in that way of truly understanding Saturn's lessons that we can process and move forward. So the energy is extremely supportive for all of that. It's going to be potentially intense. However, it's energy that we can work with. That's how it feels to me. It can be turned into the positive in that way. So I'm just going to bring up the chart now for the full moon. You're probably thinking, stop talking, Kirsty. I've had enough of this Saturn energy. So full moon in Virgo. So just there on the chart, you'll see. So this is happening just less than an hour before Saturn transit into Pisces. So the light is being turned on before Saturn enters the room, basically. But we have here 12:40 GMT, British Standard Time, and that's on the 7th of March, of course. And you can see there at the top right hand side, we've got the sun in Pisces at 16 degrees. And opposite that, so bottom left, you'll see another yellow line, and that shows the moon. So the full moon is happening 16 degrees of Virgo. So there we go, direct opposition between the sun and the moon. So again, could be illuminating a lot of emotions coming up to the surface, but can also help us ground our emotions in. One thing I will say with moon being in Virgo also is there can be some critical aspects, and I mean critical as in being critical. So not critical as in serious, I mean critical, being critical of ourselves when it comes to our emotions or our feelings. And we need to not brush over our emotions for that reason. So we need to not be harsh on ourselves, because we've got the Saturn energy coming in anyway, which is going to be that kind of harsh energy. So we need to be gentle with our emotions and recognize that this is the grounding in of our emotions that we need to almost pull us back down to earth, to say, okay, there might be some feelings coming up to the surface now because of what Saturn's going to reveal very shortly. But I'm giving you this pep talk now before he enters the room. I'm just going to tell you, we need to look at this. This is your reality check. You know, embodiment of the true soul essence being in Pisces, but the moon in Virgo, just giving that grounding, that reality check in a softer way, potentially, than Saturn's going to do. And that's why it feels like a bit of a pep talk. I've already got this little visual going on in my mind, you know, of the full moon being, you know, in a room with you, giving you the pep talk. That's just how my mind works, folks. Typical Pisces on that one. But certainly, yeah, that direct opposition can feel challenging, but allow the energy to work for you and not against you. Let's recognize the emotions that are coming up to the surface, this illumination of what's coming up to the surface as a bit of a pre-meeting before Saturn gets into the room of Pisces. It's allowing us to ground those emotions in before that happens. And also recognizing with the Libra energy. So we've got Ceres in Libra, and Ceres is that small but expansive energy, and that's opposite the Jupiter energy in Aries. So we've got, you know, expansion versus expansion, but that's where, again, they're opposite, but they can work for each other by allowing that expansive energy of hope that's going to come at the end of this healing journey. So what we might have to face or accept could be difficult, which is why we need to ground in our emotions. But ultimately, it's for our highest good, because this is all coming up to the surface for us to heal and to process. And again, with the full moon, that's great for releasing. So working with the lunar energy to release all that's not served. This is, of course, when the full moon is the full moon at its fullest. But we've got the energy, you know, a couple of days either side that's going to help with our releasing work. And again, the moon is kind of giving you that pep talk before Saturn enters Pisces. As you'll see on this chart, where the full moon is, you've got Saturn still at 29 degrees there. So this is the kind of the precursor to that. And it's allowing you to just get grounded before that moment comes. But then when that moment comes of potential realization where choices may have been made that didn't really serve you, or perhaps you didn't make a choice that you needed to make, you know, whatever it is that's going to come up, be illuminated, it then allows that energy for releasing. So it's almost, okay, thanks for the pep talk, full moon. Less than an hour later, Saturn enters the room. Okay, have you learnt your lessons? This is what I've seen over the past 3 years. This is what I've seen. These are the choices you made. Maybe that wasn't right for you. Maybe you should have kind of taken that route, you know, that sort of thing, whatever it is. And then that realization of that, if you can ground your emotions and not get too sensitive or critical, Virgo energy, then it's enabling yourself to embody that integrity within, accept it, know that you're on this healing journey with all that Aries energy, what's going on in Aries, the expansive energy that's there to help us, to bring hope as well, but also then to be able to release. So there's acceptance of it all, and then you can work with the energy to release that which doesn't serve you. So it's almost like, you know, you might get a realization of a path that you could have taken during the past 3 years when Saturn was in Aquarius, and it could have involved connections with others. You know, we've all been trying to find our soul tribe. So maybe there was a route that could have been taken as an example, and it wasn't taken for whatever reason. So that might be illuminated. And it's that realization, but not to get too kind of, oh my goodness me, critical. That's all your fault. You didn't do it. I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of this. No, we need to not talk to ourselves like that. There needs to be positive emphasis on the fact that we've had to go through that to learn. And now we've got the clarity. So clearly that choice was made or wasn't made for whatever reason, because there were other things going on. So when that can be seen clearly with the full moon shining the light on it, that then enables you to process it, because that's when the clarity comes in. Without the full moon illuminating it and Saturn telling you where you might have gone wrong, you know, and I say that harshly because we know it's not a wrong move, because detours can, you know, bring us back, but we have to learn further lessons. So I'm just kind of illustrating the harshness of how it might feel, but ultimately making a choice that could be perceived as, you know, not what we should have done, or, you know, not the route we could have gone down. We could have made it easier for ourselves, for example, but we chose a different route. And that was for a number of reasons. And acceptance of all of that, because it's being illuminated, then helps you process it. Because without that, how do we know? How do we know? So it's all for our highest good. So that's the message I'm trying to convey. And I hope that's coming across in the way that I'm intending it to come across, because, you know, we're all divine beings, and we all are all worthy of love, joy, and abundance. And abundance comes in many forms. So this is recognition of our worth and values as well. We need to really uphold that integrity of the soul and trust that this is all happening for us and not to us or against us in a negative way. So, you know, we need to work with that expansive energy, but allow ourselves to take a moment to ground our energy and our emotions in, to then embark on this next phase, if that makes sense. Just going to stop sharing. So it's almost like, okay, and that's where I mentioned before about a fresh slate. So it's kind of like, right, I'm in Pisces now, having that light shone on. What have you done here? Did you learn the lessons here? Why did you do that? You know, it's all for us, all for our highest good. But us realizing what we need to do now in this next phase, while Saturn is in Pisces, while Saturn is in the house of the divine, truly getting into alignment with our divine truth and our integrity. And the full moon and the Saturn transit could highlight where we need to get back on track in that way. Because if we've been acting from a place that's not in alignment with our integrity, that's going to be shown to us, or we're going to feel it. So it's about getting us back to that divinity that we hold within. We have that source energy within. Again, use Mercury and Pisces energy to communicate with the divine via your intuition, but also to enable conversations that might need to happen as well as a result of the karmic returns coming in from Saturn as well. So I hope that finds you well. Happy full moon in Virgo blessings. I was going to try and say Virgo and blessings at the same time. I don't know what that would have come out like, but happy full moon. Work with the lunar energy. Allow things to be illuminated that need to be illuminated. Allow Saturn to do what he needs to do to show you where things might need to change or where further lessons need to be learnt. And there needs to be an acceptance of all of this, because that's truly where the soul's wisdom is evolving and growing. Because if we can accept where we might have took a different turn, and almost like an illumination of the path now of, okay, I kind of did that, or I went that way, I need to be over there, and maybe I didn't realize it at the time. So thank you, because now I can see that, and I'm going to work with this energy to move forward in that way. And I'm going to release and transmute all those emotions or all that fear that might have led me to go that way rather than that way to start with. And now I recognize with gratitude that this path that's going to take me to where ultimately I need to be is going to be full of other experiences and adventures that I need to embark upon. And that's truly embodying that wisdom and receiving the lessons from Saturn rather than dismissing them. But definitely come from a place of integrity and check in with yourself with that Mercury and Pisces energy. Check in with your soul, check in with your intuition, converse with source energy for guidance, and follow the path that is in alignment with your soul's truth. Connect with those you need to connect to. Move forward in this way. Saturn is in Pisces, helping us to make things happen in the house of the divine, where it needs to be in alignment with our truth and our soul essence. So hope that finds you well. Take care. Happy full moon, and embrace the Saturn transit into Pisces. Sending you love and blessings. Take care, everybody.